On Christmas Eve, my 3-year-old daughter burst into tears, overwhelmed by the spicy dishes on the table. My father-in-law slammed down his fork and shouted at her, "If you can't eat it, get out." My husband sat there in silence, pretending not to notice. Without a word or tear, I calmly picked up my daughter. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Christmas Eve, and outside the window, sporadic fireworks lit up the sky. Inside, however, it was as cold as an ice cellar. The 1,800-square-foot luxury flat I'd bought was now filled with a thick, pungent smell of grease. From the kitchen came the clamorous voice of my mother-in-law, Lottie Gray. In the living room, my father-in-law Charles Webb sat rigidly, like a petty monarch awaiting court. My sister-in-law Mina Webb was sprawled on the sofa, scrolling through TikTok videos while cracking nuts, the shells scattered all over the floor. My husband, Harold Webb, sat next to his sister, engrossed in a mobile game. The incongruity between the violent sound effects and his detached expression created an absurd tableau. Only my 3-year-old daughter Joyce, clutching a teddy bear, gazed longingly towards the kitchen. "Mummy, is the soup ready yet?" I stroked her soft hair and said gently, "Soon, darling. Mummy will go and check." That pot of creamy pork rib and sweet corn soup was specially prepared for Joyce. Her delicate stomach couldn't handle heavy, spicy food. For this Christmas Eve dinner, I had bought the freshest pork ribs 2 days in advance and simmered them on low heat all afternoon. The soup was milky white, with the sweet aroma of corn. But as soon as I entered the kitchen, I saw my mother-in-law pouring a bottle of bright red chili oil into my soup pot without hesitation. "Mom, what are you doing?" I rushed over, but it was too late. Half a bottle of chili oil, like molten lava, instantly engulfed the sweet soup. The pungent spicy smell made me stumble backwards. Startled by my outburst, Lottie quickly put down the bottle, then defended herself righteously. "What's all the fuss about? Christmas should be hot and bright. That soup of yours was bland as dishwater." "How festive is that?" There wasn't a hint of apology on her face for the accident. Rather a glimmer of smug satisfaction. My heart sank to the pit of my stomach. This wasn't the first time. Ever since they moved in, my lifestyle had been forcibly compromised to accommodate their family's idea of hot and bright. I preferred mild flavors. They couldn't eat a meal without spice. I liked peace and quiet. They had the telly blaring at full volume every day. Mina's sleep schedule was completely reversed. Voice chatting with friends while gaming in the living room in the middle of the night. The leather sofa I'd bought was now pockmarked with burn holes from my father-in-law's cigarettes. The houseplants I'd carefully nurtured were covered in their cigarette ash. I'd endured it all. For Harold's sake, to give Joyce the semblance of a complete family. I'd swallowed every grievance. But today, they'd gone after my 3-year-old daughter. I carried the ruined pot of soup to the sink and poured it all out without a word. Lottie shrieked behind me. "What are you doing? Have you gone mad? I was trying to help, and you're pouring it away?" I didn't turn around, just opened the tap and rinsed the pot over and over. The sound of running water was like the anger surging through me. The Christmas Eve dinner was finally served. 12 dishes crowded the table. Poached cod and ale with spiced butter sauce. Roasted spiced chicken thighs with root vegetables. Spiced bean curd and mince, baked cod head with pickled chili relish. A sea of angry red. Not a single dish Joyce could eat. I served her a small bowl of mashed potato, intending to rinse some vegetables in hot water for her to eat. My father-in-law, Charles, glowered at the bowl of hot water in front of me and snorted coldly. "City folk are so fussy. All this palaver over a simple meal." Ignoring him, I picked up a small piece of prawn, rinsed it thoroughly in the hot water 7 or 8 times, making sure there wasn't a trace of spice left before carefully feeding it to Joyce. Joyce took a bite, her little face immediately scrunching up. Before she started coughing violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Spicy. Mummy, it's spicy." The residual spice that had penetrated the prawn was still an unbearable ordeal for a 3-year-old. My heart ached as if pierced by needles. I quickly put down my fork, gave her some water, and comforted her softly. "Don't cry, baby. Mommy's here. Harold finally looked up from his phone, but instead of looking at us, he picked up the spiciest chicken and put it in my bowl. Evelyn, what are you waiting for? Mom's cooked all this, you should eat more. Try the flavor. His tone was so casual, as if the distress of his wife and daughter was merely an insignificant backdrop. I stared at the piece of chicken in my bowl, coated in chili and red oil, feeling nauseous. After 5 years of marriage, he seemed to have never remembered that I couldn't handle spicy food either. Joyce's cries grew louder, filled with hurt and discomfort. Bang! A harsh noise rang out as Charles slammed his cutlery on the table. His face, already dark from years of smoking and drinking, now turned the color of liver, contorted with rage. Pointing at the trembling Joyce in my arms, he roared with all his might. If you can't eat it, get out! Crying and whining on Christmas Eve, what bad luck! Get out! Those 2 words were like 3 poisoned daggers, stabbing deep into my heart. He was shouting at my daughter, the child I cherished more than anything in the world. A 3-year-old child. The room fell silent. Lottie lowered her head and continued eating, pretending she hadn't heard anything. Mina's lips curled into a schadenfreude smirk, her eyes full of contempt, eager for the drama to unfold. My arms, holding Joyce, were shaking. Blood rushed to my head in an instant, then rapidly cooled. I slowly raised my head and looked at Harold. I hoped, even if just this once, he would stand up and shield us, his wife and daughter. But he only avoided my gaze, not even daring to look me in the eye, mumbling under his breath. Dad, don't say that. His voice was so faint, like a mosquito's buzz, that only he could hear it. The last bit of warmth in my heart was extinguished completely. So all these years, what I had painstakingly nurtured was nothing but a joke. I didn't cry, nor did I make a scene. Calmly, even tenderly, I picked up my still shaken daughter. I wiped away her tears and straightened her slightly disheveled clothes. Then, holding her, I walked step by step towards the entrance. Throughout this process, everyone in the living room watched me with shocked expressions, probably expecting me to stage a dramatic storming out scene. I changed into my shoes, opened the door, and the cold wind rushed in, instantly clearing my foggy mind. I turned back, facing those faces at the dining table, shocked, contemptuous, gloating, and smiled. My gaze finally settled on Charles's imperious face. Clearly, calmly, I said word by word, Dad, I bought this house. From now on, you won't be welcome at this table either. I finished speaking and, without waiting for their reaction, I carried my daughter into the lift. Behind us, chaos erupted instantly. Charles's furious roar, Lottie's shrill abuse, and Mina's piercing scream of Evelyn, have you gone mad? All mixed together like a boiling pot of rubbish, which I left behind as the lift doors closed. As the lift descended smoothly, our reflections appeared on the metal walls. Joyce's little face was still buried in the crook of my neck, quietly sobbing. I gently patted her back, but my heart felt as hard as stone. With a ding, the lift reached the ground floor. I had barely stepped out of the building when Harold caught up with me, grabbing my arm. The cold winter night air blew on his face, but he seemed not to notice it, his forehead covered in sweat. He pulled me into the dim light of the hallway and lowered his voice, using that sickening, placating tone I'd heard for 5 years. Evelyn, it's Christmas Eve. Can't you just let it go? You know what my dad's like, why are you taking it out on him? I shook off his hand and looked at him coldly. Harold, our daughter is only 3 years old. He told her to get out. Didn't you hear that? My voice wasn't loud, but it was as sharp as an icicle, making him shudder. He began his classic performance, emotional blackmail. But you can't speak to my dad like that. He's my father. He's our elder. Where will he put his face now? How am I supposed to face my family? Face? His father's face. What about my heart? What about our daughter's feelings? Looking at his face, now twisted with urgency, I suddenly felt utterly estranged from him. We were once the envy of everyone at university, a perfect couple. He was so attentive, remembering my menstrual cycle, running across half the city to buy my favorite cake. When did he become like this? Oh, it was when he allowed his birth family to entangle themselves with our little family. Like parasitic vines, one tendril at a time. I remembered 3 years ago when I used up all my savings. And even borrowed from my parents to buy this flat outright. Harold hugged me then, his eyes shining. He said, "Evelyn, thank you. We finally have our own home. I swear, I'll be good to you and our child for the rest of my life." I believed him then. But as soon as we got the deed, he used the excuse that his parents are getting old and have no one to look after them back home. To move Charles and Lottie in. Within 6 months, he used the pretext that his sister had just graduated and it wasn't safe for her to rent to move Mina in too. My home became their home. My living space was squeezed inch by inch until today, when there wasn't even room at the dinner table for my daughter to eat in peace. Harold, I looked at him calmly. You only care about his face, not about your daughter's stomach, not about my heart. From today on, you can worry about your own face. I'm no longer paying the price for your life choices. With that, I took out my phone, ignoring his pale face. I dialed the property manager's number. When the call connected, I spoke in the calmest voice. "Hello, this is Evelyn Shaw, the owner of flat 1801 in Building 1. Some of my family members are moving out tonight, and they have quite a lot of belongings. Could you please send 2 security guards at 9 a.m. tomorrow to maintain order and lend a hand?" "Certainly, Ms. Shaw. It's all arranged." Harold's face instantly drained of all color. He finally realized that I wasn't joking, wasn't having a tantrum, wasn't waiting for him to coax me. I was informing him of a decision. He panicked, completely panicked. He rushed forward, grabbing my arm tightly, his voice pleading. "Evelyn, Evelyn, don't do this. Let's talk about this, okay? Let's go back home and talk. I'll make them apologize to you, to our daughter." I looked at him, my gaze icy cold. Apologize? If apologies were enough, what about the 5 years of grievances I've endured? Without another word, I broke free from his grip, carrying our daughter towards the estate gates. The cold wind blew through my long hair, sweeping away the last trace of attachment I had for him. Harold stood frozen in place, shocked by my cold gaze, like a statue of despair. I booked a room at the best 5-star hotel nearby. The warm lighting, soft carpets, and clean air finally allowed my tense nerves to relax a bit. I gave Joyce a hot bath, changed her into clean pajamas, then ordered her favorite creamy pumpkin and millet porridge with steamed egg and shrimp. Watching my daughter eat small bites, a satisfied smile on her face, I felt the gaping wound in my heart slowly begin to heal. "Mummy, are we not going home?" Joyce looked up and asked cautiously. Her eyes were clear and bright, like 2 black grapes. I smiled and stroked her head, my tone gentle but firm. "That's right, we're not going back to that house. Mummy's going to find you a better home, a real new home with just the 2 of us." Joyce nodded, seeming to half understand, and happily went back to eating her steamed egg. Children are sensitive. She may not understand the complexities of the adult world, but she could clearly sense which air made her feel oppressed and which made her feel free. My mobile hadn't stopped ringing since the moment I left the neighborhood. The names Harold, Lottie, Charles, and Mina flashed across the screen in turn. I didn't answer any of them, rejecting each call. Soon after, a long string of WhatsApp voice messages came through from Mina. I played them on speaker. Her shrill, harsh voice instantly filled the entire room. "Evelyn Shaw, you ungrateful wretch. What's so great about you? Just because you earn a bit of money? If it weren't for my brother, you'd be nothing. You live in our Webb family's house, spend my brother's money. And now you think you're something special, daring to kick out my parents? You just wait, I'll go to your company and make a scene. Let everyone see what kind of person you really are. Ungrateful. Shameless." I listened expressionlessly. Joyce was frightened, so I immediately turned off the phone to comfort her. After Joyce fell asleep, I converted each of Mina's voice messages into text. Then took screenshots of both the audio and text versions, and saved them. After doing all this, I only sent her one message back. "Whose name is on the deed?" Do you want me to send you a picture? The other end went suddenly silent. Like a chicken with its neck wrung. After a full 10 minutes, Mina finally sent a text message. Her tone softened but still carrying an air of entitlement. Evelyn, we're all family. We see each other all the time, don't do anything rash. I looked at these words and sneered. Why didn't they think about not doing anything rash? When they were leeching off me like parasites? Why didn't they think about not doing anything rash? When Charles was pointing at my 3-year-old daughter's nose and telling her to get out. Next, Harold's text came through. His tone was much more sincere than his sister's. And all the more hypocritical for it. Evelyn, I know I was wrong. My parents and my sister are waiting for us to come back for a family meeting to clear things up. Can you come back first? We can solve any problems together. Family meeting? Clear things up? I replied to him. There's nothing to discuss. Before 10 a.m. tomorrow, remove all your and your family's belongings from my house. Otherwise, I'll report it to the police as illegal trespassing. I thought my attitude was resolute enough. I didn't expect Harold's next text message would completely reveal this man's true colors. Evelyn, don't push me. You paid the deposit for this house, but we've been paying the mortgage together. You have no right to make decisions on your own. I looked at the glaring together on the screen and laughed bitterly. The mask was finally off. He had finally shed his last layer of pretense, exposing his greedy fangs. Fine, very well. I opened the hotel's business computer, logged into my online banking, and pulled up all the transactions for the past 3 years. Then, I created a new Excel document, naming it Marital Property, Harold Webb's Contribution, Detailed Statement. Since he wants to settle accounts, I'll oblige him, going through it item by item until everything is crystal clear. The next morning at 9 o'clock sharp, I arrived at the entrance of the apartment complex. I wasn't alone. Standing beside me was my best friend and the top divorce lawyer in the industry, Daisy Gray. Behind her were 2 burly security guards I had requested through the property management. The 4 of us marched towards Building 1 with a formidable presence. In the lift, Daisy patted my shoulder, her gaze sharp. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Today, I promise you will clear out this rubbish in style. I nodded, taking a deep breath. The moment I opened the door, I nearly fainted at the sight before me. The living room was a complete mess, with sunflower seed shells, cigarette butts, and half-eaten fruit platters strewn everywhere. All 4 members of the Webb family were there. Not one missing, sitting in the living room. Charles sat in the main spot on the sofa, legs crossed, puffing on a cigarette. He didn't even bother to look up when I entered, contemptuously flicking his cigarette butt onto my polished wooden floor. The spark left an ugly black mark on the floor. Lottie and Mina sat on either side of him like a pair of guardian statues, arms folded, glaring at me with scrutiny and hostility. They hadn't packed a single piece of luggage, clearly having no intention of leaving. Harold stepped forward. He looked like he hadn't slept all night, with dark circles under his eyes and a haggard expression. He tried to adopt a negotiating stance, but his voice was weak and wavering. Evelyn, stop this nonsense, it's good that you're back. What happened yesterday was my dad's mistake. But he was just confused for a moment, you shouldn't. Mr. Webb, Daisy stepped forward, cutting off his words. Her voice was calm and professional, instantly commanding the atmosphere of the entire room. We're not here today to listen to your excuses. Miss Shaw has decided to reclaim her private property, and requests that you vacate the premises by 10 o'clock this morning. Harold's face turned red. He stiffened his neck and played his last card. We have a share in this house too. We paid the mortgage together. She can't just kick us out like this. Oh. Daisy raised an eyebrow, pulling out a stack of documents from her briefcase. Mr. Webb, according to the bank statements provided by Ms. Shaw, in the 3 years since the marriage, that is, 36 months, the mortgage for this house, totaling 36 payments of £23,000 each, was automatically deducted from Ms. Shaw's personal bank account. May I ask, where is your evidence of this joint mortgage payment you claim? Harold was stunned. He hadn't expected me to be so thoroughly prepared. He began to stammer excuses. I gave her my salary every month. I handed over all my money to her. Using her card to pay, isn't that us paying together? I finally smiled, a smile of extreme mockery. Your salary? Harold, let's calculate your salary. I took the Excel spreadsheet I had stayed up all night preparing from Daisy's hand and held it up in front of him. You, a state enterprise employee with a monthly salary of £8,000. For the 3 years since our marriage. I have a complete record of your salary card transactions here. I cleared my throat and, in front of his entire family, read out each transaction one by one. Every first of the month, your salary of £8,000 is deposited. On the same day, without fail, a transfer of £5,000 to your mother, Lottie Gray. With the note living expenses. Lottie's face changed. Around the 15th of each month, a transfer of £2,000 to your sister Mina Webb. With various notes like buying a bag, buying cosmetics, birthday gift. Mina's face also paled. The remaining £1,000 is your monthly pocket money. Buying cigarettes, treating colleagues to meals, buying game skins for yourself. Harold, hand on your heart, tell me, in these 3 years, have you ever given me a single penny? Have you ever contributed a single penny to this household? My voice wasn't loud, but it was like a heavy hammer, striking hard at the heart of each member of the Webb family. Their faces all changed, as if they had been publicly stripped naked. Mina was the first to lose her composure, screaming, "Who are you to control how my brother spends his money? It's his money, he can give it to whoever he wants." I couldn't be bothered to look at her. My gaze fixed firmly on Harold, asking word by word. "Now, do you still think it was a joint mortgage payment?" Harold's lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. All his lies and pretenses were torn to shreds by this thin A4 paper I had printed out. Suddenly, Charles, who had been silent all along, sprang up from the sofa. Like an enraged bull, he lunged at me with a twisted face, trying to snatch the documents from my hand, while cursing. "You witch! How dare you investigate my son's accounts? I'll kill you!" His bony hand hadn't even touched me, before he was restrained by the 2 tall security guards, one on each side. Charles, humiliated and enraged, began to spew the most vicious personal attacks. "What use is it for a woman like you to earn so much money? A hen that doesn't lay eggs. Married for so many years, and all you produced was one useless brat. You're bad luck. A hen that doesn't lay eggs. Useless brat." With a boom, the last thread of rationality in my mind snapped completely. Charles's insults pierced my heart like a poisoned blade, striking my most vulnerable spot. I held Joyce tightly, desperately trying to shield her from such toxic and malicious thoughts. Yet, in the end, it was her own flesh and blood grandfather inflicting this cruelty. My body trembled, not from fear, but from sheer rage. I looked at Charles Webb, still struggling and cursing as the security guards restrained him. Then at Lottie Gray and Mina Webb, cowering silently on the sofa. Finally, at Harold Webb, who had been hiding like a coward throughout the entire ordeal. Suddenly, I realized that uttering even one more word to them would be an insult to myself. Without hesitation or mercy, I turned to the 2 security guards and coldly commanded, "Clear them out." Given clear instructions, the guards no longer held back. They forcibly escorted the still cursing Charles out, one on each side. Seeing this, Lottie and Mina immediately began to make a scene. One threw herself on the floor, wailing and beating her chest, crying, "There's no justice. The daughter-in-law is abusing her father-in-law." The other lunged at me, trying to claw at my face while screaming, "You harlot! You'll get what's coming to you." Daisy reacted swiftly, shielding me behind her while instructing the other guard. "Record everything. We need evidence." Eventually, this farce ended with the Webb family being forcibly removed from our home. I threw their belongings out into the hallway, piece by piece. They continued their tantrum outside, crying and cursing, attracting curious glances from the neighbors. Harold completely broke down. Instead of joining his parents' commotion, he fell to his knees before me with a thud. He clung to my legs, his face streaked with tears and snot. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Please don't send us away. I'm begging you. For Joyce's sake, give me one more chance. I swear I'll change. I looked down at him. This man who once made my heart race, whom I admired and willingly gave everything for, now kneeling at my feet like a dog. I felt no satisfaction, only endless sorrow and absurdity. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I frowned as I answered, putting it on speaker. On the other end was a man's voice, filled with venom. Is this Harold Webb's family? Harold's body stiffened at the sound of his name. Before I could respond, the caller continued shouting. Harold Webb owes our quick cash platform £500,000 in gambling debts. If it's not paid today, we're coming to collect. You live at flat 1801, building 1, right? Just wait. I was thunderstruck, frozen in place. £500,000? Gambling debts? I looked down sharply at Harold, still kneeling on the floor. His face turned ashen, devoid of color. His eyes darted about, unable to meet mine as sweat poured down his temples. In that moment, everything became clear. I understood why his £8,000 salary was never enough. I understood why he was always out socializing in the middle of the night. I understood why he was so comfortable with me buying the house, the car, and covering all our expenses. Beneath his quiet and timid exterior lurked such a massive black hole. I hung up the phone, staring at him, unable to utter a word. It was the numbness that comes after complete betrayal and deception. Daisy immediately grasped the gravity of the situation and said to me, "Evelyn, don't panic. Leave this to me. I'll investigate Harold's credit report and all his hidden debts across every platform right away." I nodded woodenly. The security guards cleared out the mountain of Webb family luggage. As they dragged out Harold's battered suitcase, an old black mobile phone fell out from a hidden compartment. I had never seen that phone before. Driven by a strong intuition, I bent down to pick it up. I tried a few passwords, but none worked. Finally, on a hunch, I entered our daughter Joyce's birthday. The screen lit up. I opened the photo gallery, and my heart clenched. It was full of intimate photos of Harold with another woman I didn't recognize. They were kissing on the beach, taking selfies with their heads together in restaurants, and lying naked in each other's arms on a hotel bed. The woman was young and beautiful, with a slightly swollen belly and a victorious smile on her face. I opened the text messages. The most recent one was from that woman. It was sent last night, on Christmas Eve. "Harold, your wife is so rich, £500,000 shouldn't be a big deal for her, right? When are you going to come clean, divorce her, and marry me? The baby in my belly can't wait much longer." As I read those words, my vision blurred, and I nearly lost my balance. So last night, while I was confronting his entire family for our daughter's sake, he was on his phone, exchanging sweet nothings with his mistress and their unborn child. I had always thought our problems stemmed from his blood-sucking family wearing away at our love. Only now did I realize how terribly wrong I was. This wasn't erosion, this was betrayal. It was a premeditated, thorough assassination of both my character and my feelings. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply handed the phone to Daisy, my voice eerily calm. "Daisy, is this enough for him to leave with nothing?" Daisy looked at the contents of the phone, her face turning grim. She looked up at me, her eyes full of sympathy and anger. "It's more than enough. Evelyn, this evidence will leave him without even his underwear in court." I nodded, a cold fire igniting in my heart. Harold Webb, and the rest of the Webb family. This game has only just begun. I had Daisy back up and notarize all the evidence from Harold's old phone. Photos, chat logs, and transfer records. After completing this, I felt an eerie calmness within me. There were no tears, no hysteria. Just a bone-chilling coldness and a calm readiness for revenge. Daisy informed me that according to marriage law, if I could prove I was completely unaware of the gambling debts incurred during our marriage, and that the money wasn't used for our shared household expenses, I wouldn't be legally responsible for a single penny. The evidence of his affair, cohabitation with a third party, and illegal disposal of our joint assets for this third party, would be the most powerful weapons in court. Enough to leave Harold with nothing in the divorce proceedings. After I kicked Harold and his family out of our luxury home, they became homeless strays. They started frantically calling and texting me, going from pleading to threats to curses. I blocked all their numbers. Mina even showed up at my office building, trying to cause a scene, but was stopped by the security guards I had warned in advance. Without hesitation, I called the police. When the officers arrived, they took her to the station for a few hours on charges of disorderly conduct. Meanwhile, I filed for divorce and immediately applied for pretrial asset preservation. The court acted quickly, freezing Harold's only payroll card. That card still had the £20,000 I had just transferred to him for Christmas presents and holiday shopping. Now, this became his last asset, which I had frozen. When the debt collection company couldn't find Harold, they started bombarding me with calls. I answered the phone, my tone colder than theirs. My name is Evelyn Shaw, Harold Webb's soon-to-be ex-wife. His personal gambling debts have nothing to do with me. I will submit all relevant evidence to the court. If you continue to harass me or my family with phone calls, I will immediately report you to the police for violent debt collection. I hung up and blocked that number too. I wanted Harold to taste what it felt like to be besieged on all sides with nowhere to turn. Sure enough, he was completely desperate. No money, no place to live, and being chased like a dog by debt collectors. He could only turn back to his parents and sister. Through some friends, I learned that the Webb family, unable to afford a hotel, ended up renting a dark, damp basement flat. The four of them were crammed into a space less than 20 square meters, bickering every day about who should pay for what and who should do what, in complete chaos. The best was yet to come. Mina originally had a fiancé from a decent family, and they were discussing marriage. However, the series of scandals surrounding the Webb family, plus Harold's enormous gambling debts, soon reached the ears of her fiancé's family. The man's family promptly called off the engagement and demanded Mina return the full amount of the engagement gifts. This was another blow to the Webb family. Harold was completely out of options. He came to find me again, but this time, he wasn't alone. He brought that woman, that mistress with a slightly protruding belly. They cornered me at the entrance of the early learning center where I was taking Joyce. That woman, wearing exquisite makeup and a designer coat, looked me up and down with a scrutinizing, hostile gaze. She clung to Harold's arm and said to me haughtily, "You must be Evelyn? I advise you to be sensible. Harold loves me, and I'm already pregnant with his child, a boy. You'd better divorce him quickly and give him half of the house and money. We need to raise our child, and there are many expenses ahead." Her tone suggested that she was the rightful wife, and I was just an obstacle that needed to be removed. Looking at this perfectly matched pair of scum in front of me, and Harold's face hiding behind his mistress, both guilty and slightly hopeful, I laughed bitterly. Truly, what kind of rubbish finds its way to what kind of bin? I stared at the woman's smug face, watching her deliberately protruding belly, as the smile on my lips grew colder. "Congratulations," I said languidly. The woman hesitated for a moment, probably not expecting this reaction from me. I continued, "Congratulations on marrying a man who's £500,000 in debt, has no house, no car, no savings, and is about to lose his job. Oh, and by the way, I've had his only bank card frozen. I'm afraid your future child will have to grow up on thin air." The woman's face changed instantly. She looked at Harold Webb in disbelief. "Is what she's saying true? You owe £500,000? Harold's face turned red and white in turns as he stammered. "Darling, don't listen to her nonsense. She's just trying to scare you so she doesn't have to split the assets." "Scare?" I took out my phone from my bag and, in front of both of them, packaged all the evidence I had compiled about Harold's gambling affairs and illegal transfer of marital property to a third party into a compressed file. Then, I found the whistleblowing email address of Harold's company's disciplinary committee and clicked send. Email sent successfully. I waved my phone and gave Harold a bright smile. "Harold, I forgot to tell you. Your state-owned enterprise has a zero-tolerance policy for employees' misconduct, doesn't it?" Harold completely lost it. He lunged at me like a cornered wild beast, roaring and trying to snatch my phone. "Evelyn Shaw, you vicious woman. How dare you ruin me?" I was prepared. Standing behind me were two professional bodyguards I had recently hired. Before Harold could even touch the hem of my clothes, he was firmly pinned to the ground by the two bodyguards, unable to move. The mistress was also completely stunned, standing rooted to the spot, her face pale. During the time before the court hearing, the Webb family tried everything they could. They went to cry and make a scene outside my parents' house, saying that I, their unfilial daughter, was going to drive their whole family to death. They went to the entrance of my company to hang banners, claiming that I had an improper private life and abused my in-laws. But all of this was within my expectations. I had hired security guards to keep watch 24 hours a day, so they couldn't even get up to my parents' floor. At my company, the PR department had already prepared a statement and reported this malicious defamation to the police. Each of their tantrums only added another piece of evidence of their bad character to my divorce case. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. In court, Harold's side denied all the accusations. His lawyer casually dismissed the £500,000 gambling debt as normal loans between friends. He described those obscene photos and chat records as jokes between close friends. He even turned the tables, saying that I was too domineering, looked down on his family from the countryside, and had been mentally oppressing him for a long time, which was the root cause of the marriage breakdown. Listening to these distorted words, I felt no ripple in my heart. When it was my lawyer, Daisy's turn to speak, she didn't waste words. She methodically threw out the evidence, one piece at a time. The phone recordings from the debt collection company, each clearly mentioning the word gambling debt. Harold's personal bank card statements, clearly showing multiple deposits to online gambling platforms. The photos, videos, and explicit chat records with the mistress from that old phone. A list of every sum of money Harold had secretly transferred to the mistress through various means, totaling over £200,000, with notes like buying a bag for baby, baby's living expenses, baby I love you. The chain of evidence was complete, clear, and irrefutable. Harold's lawyer's forehead began to sweat, his face growing increasingly grim until he was finally left speechless. Harold himself slumped in the defendant's seat, his face ashen. Seeing the situation turning against them, Lottie Gray, sitting in the public gallery, suddenly went berserk. She abruptly stood up, pointed her finger at me, and began to throw a tantrum in court. "Your Honor, don't be fooled by this vixen. It's her. She was unfaithful to my son first. I saw it with my own eyes. Every night she comes home in some man's luxury car. That car must cost several £1,000,000. She's found herself a sugar daddy, that's why she wants to dump my son." She cried her heart out, as if she had suffered a great injustice. A glimmer of hope suddenly flashed in Harold's eyes, and he immediately chimed in. "Yes, Your Honor. She's cheating. She's using my money to keep a toy boy." The whole courtroom was in an uproar. I was shaking with anger at this sudden slander. Just as I was about to speak up, Daisy held me back. At that moment, on the other side of the public gallery, a figure slowly stood up. The man was wearing a suit and tie, with a refined demeanor. It was my company's boss, also a respected veteran in the industry, Mr. Fox. What was he doing here? Then I heard him speak to the judge in a calm yet powerful voice. "Your Honor, the luxury car worth several £1,000,000 that Mrs. Webb mentioned is mine. Evelyn Shaw is a key member of my company's design department, and she's been working on a very important project recently, often staying late into the night. As her superior, I've simply given her a lift home a few times. My car is equipped with a dashcam that records audio and video throughout the journey, which can be submitted to the court as evidence at any time." Mr. Fox's voice echoed clearly in the solemn courtroom. The Webb family, including Harold and Lottie, were all stunned, as if struck by lightning. That tiny spark of hope that had just ignited on their faces was instantly extinguished by a bucket of ice water. The final court ruling came swiftly, and the outcome was as expected. Firstly, my divorce from Harold Webb was granted. Secondly, I was awarded custody of our 3-year-old daughter, Joyce. Harold, as the father, was ordered to pay £800 per month in child support. This amount, once insignificant compared to his former income, would now be a considerable burden given his impending circumstances. Thirdly, regarding the division of marital assets. The luxury home I had purchased outright before our marriage, along with all my personal savings and investments, were deemed my individual property, unrelated to Harold. Fourthly, the court ruled that the £200,000 Harold had maliciously transferred to a third party during our marriage was an illegal disposal of joint marital property. He was ordered to repay the full amount to me within 30 days. Lastly, the £500,000 gambling debt he had accrued was deemed his personal liability, unrelated to me. As the judge pronounced each word of the verdict, I listened calmly. There was no excitement, no joy, only a weary sense of relief that this 5-year nightmare had finally come to an end. Harold's downfall was swifter and more brutal than I had imagined. Less than a week after the trial, he was summarily dismissed from his position at the corporation. Due to his gambling and serious misconduct issues, he had become a debt-ridden, disgraced unemployed man. The mistress who had claimed to love him and was carrying his child, upon learning that he had been left penniless and owed me over £200,000, went to the hospital the very next day to terminate the pregnancy. She then changed her phone number and vanished without a trace. Abandoned and destitute. These words perfectly summed up his situation. A week later, I encountered Harold again near the rubbish bins outside our home. He looked even more haggard and disheveled than during the trial, with an unkempt beard, greasy hair, and wearing a wrinkled raincoat. Upon seeing me, his eyes lit up, and he rushed towards me, attempting to grab my arm. My bodyguard quickly intercepted him. From behind the bodyguard, he began to weep bitterly, all while slapping himself hard across the face. "Evelyn, I know I was wrong, I truly know I was wrong. I'm a beast. I shouldn't have gambled, shouldn't have betrayed you. Can you forgive me? For Joyce's sake, can you lend me some money to get through this crisis? £500,000. Those people want my life." As I looked at his tear-streaked face, I recalled his silent, numb expression on Christmas Eve, when faced with his father's humiliation and our daughter's cries. I felt nothing but an overwhelming sense of unfamiliarity and disgust. Without a word, I took out a £100 note from my purse and placed it on the ground in front of him. "Harold, this is the last shred of dignity I'll afford you as your ex-wife. From now on, don't ever appear before me or my daughter again. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that your creditors won't receive some helpful information about your parents' and sisters' addresses." With that, I turned, pressed the lift button, and never looked back. Behind me, I could hear his desperate, heart-wrenching sobs. Harold's life had completely fallen apart. The debt collectors, like sharks smelling blood, were constantly blocking the entrance to the dingy basement flat where his parents were renting. They splashed paint, scrawled graffiti, and blasted Harold Webbo's money on loudspeakers 24 hours a day. Charles and Lottie had used up their life savings to pay off a small portion, but it was just a drop in the ocean compared to the enormous debt of £500,000. Soon, they were evicted by their landlord and ended up on the streets. Meanwhile, my dear sister-in-law Mina, after being jilted by her fiancé and asked to return the engagement gifts, had a complete falling out with the family. She called her brother useless for dragging her down. She berated her parents for being incompetent and unable to help her. Then, she took what little money the family had left and moved out, completely cutting off contact and ignoring her parents' and brother's dire situation. It was a perfect illustration of every man for himself when disaster strikes. I thought that was the end of it. But then, one day, I received an anonymous call. The person on the phone told me that Mina actually owned a small flat in the city center. That flat had been bought 2 years ago by Harold. Behind my back, using our joint savings, he had paid for it in full and registered it solely under Mina's name. At the time, he had lied to me, saying he had lent the money to a distant relative who urgently needed it. And I had believed him. After hanging up, I remained silent for a long time. I chose not to sue Mina to recover the money, because I knew there was a more direct, and satisfying way of revenge than going through the legal system. I bought a new SIM card and anonymously sent a text message to the leader of Harold's debt collection agency. The message was simple. Harold Webb's sister, Mina Webb, owns a fully paid-off property worth about £1,200,000. She's living there alone now. After sending this, I snapped the SIM card in half and flushed it down the toilet. The rest would take care of itself. Sure enough, within 3 days, I heard about Mina's misfortune from a friend. Those menacing debt collectors had found a new target. They surrounded Mina, threatened her, and intimidated her. Mina, being a young woman, had never encountered such a situation before. She was terrified out of her wits. Eventually, under immense pressure, she was forced to sell the flat she had been so proud of, using the money to pay off all of her brother Harold's gambling debts. She went from being a city girl with property and savings to having nothing overnight, while also gaining a bad reputation. As for Charles, after enduring this series of blows, he suffered a sudden stroke that left him partially paralyzed. With a drooping face, completely bedridden, Lottie couldn't manage to care for him alone, nor could she afford the expensive medical bills. At her wit's end, she called me from an unknown number. On the phone, she was sobbing uncontrollably, begging me, saying that Charles wanted to see his granddaughter Joyce one last time before he died. As I listened to her aged, tearful voice, I felt not a ripple of emotion. I only said one thing to her. When he told a 3-year-old child to get out, he should have anticipated this day would come. My daughter will not see someone who once so viciously cursed her. With that, I hung up and blocked the number. At this point, all the grudges between me and the Webb family were settled once and for all. Breaking free from the Webb family quagmire, my life seemed to shift into high gear. I poured all my energy and passion into my work. No longer did I have to compromise my palate to cater to someone else's tastes. No longer did I have to suppress my thoughts to save face for others. With an innovative eco-friendly community design proposal, I clinched the industry's most prestigious Golden Stone Award in one fell swoop. At the award ceremony, I stood confidently under the spotlight, wearing a well-tailored white suit. In the audience, my boss, Mr. Fox, the distinguished gentleman who had testified for me in court, gazed at me with admiration and approval. Soon after, at a company board meeting, Mr. Fox pushed through opposition to promote me as the director of the newly established design department. What's more, he granted me a 3% equity stake in the company as an incentive. My career reached unprecedented heights. Both my income and status far surpassed what they once were. The first thing I did was sell the flat that held too many unpleasant memories. Then, I exchanged it for a 2,800 square foot penthouse, with a river view in the city's best school district. Standing before the enormous floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing at the ceaseless flow of the river below and the glittering city skyline across, I felt as if I were in a different world entirely. I hired the best private tutors for Joyce, and enrolled her in the ballet and horse riding classes she loved. I took her to Switzerland to see the snow-capped mountains, to Paris to explore art galleries, and to Kenya to witness the great animal migration. Free from that oppressive family environment, Joyce's personality became increasingly cheerful and confident, with smiles gracing her face more often. My former colleagues and friends, upon seeing me, all said I seemed like a different person. They said that after the divorce, I was radiant, glowing, exuding a powerful aura. I began to reevaluate my life. I got a gym membership, hired a personal trainer, and committed to 3 sessions a week, come rain or shine. I enrolled in wine tasting and art appreciation courses, meeting many outstanding individuals from various fields. I was no longer just Mrs. Webb whose life revolved around her husband, child, and family. I was simply myself, Evelyn Shaw. I discovered that when a woman truly possesses a strong, independent sense of self, the whole world indeed makes way for her. On a sunny weekend, I drove my new white Porsche, taking Joyce to her riding lesson at the countryside stables. Soft classical music played in the car, as Joyce hummed happily in her child's safety seat in the back. While waiting at a traffic light at an intersection, I caught a glimpse of a familiar yet strange figure. It was Harold. He was wearing an ill-fitting, shabby gray security guard uniform with a crooked cap, clumsily directing traffic at the junction. His face was tanned and weathered, his hair graying, and his back hunched. He looked at least 10 years older than his actual age. A BMW driver rolled down his window, shouting abuse at Harold, presumably unhappy with his traffic direction. Harold could only bow and nod repeatedly, his face plastered with a servile and humble smile. He seemed to sense my gaze and looked up, his eyes meeting mine through the sea of vehicles. Our gazes briefly connected across the divide. I wore large sunglasses that concealed all my emotions. I remained still, expressionless. We stared at each other silently for a few seconds, separated by two different worlds. Joyce in the back seat curiously leaned forward, pointing out the window and asking, "Mummy, who's that man? Why does he keep looking at us?" I shifted my gaze, looking at my daughter's innocent face in the rearview mirror, and calmly replied, "Just a man asking for directions. We don't know him." The light turned green. Without further hesitation, I gently pressed the accelerator, and the white Porsche merged smoothly into the flowing traffic like a graceful bolt of lightning. In the rearview mirror, I saw Harold still standing there motionless, like a weathered statue, staring blankly at my taillights as they disappeared down the road. I knew that from that Christmas Eve when I turned away resolutely with my daughter in my arms. We had become people of two different worlds. The muddy, unbearable, nauseating past he represented had been completely and permanently left behind. It was Christmas Eve once again. My new home was spacious, bright, and warm. Through the large floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the twinkling lights of countless homes and the dazzling cityscape at night. My parents had come from their countryside home to spend Christmas with me. The three of us were gathered around the island in the open-plan kitchen, chatting and laughing as we prepared the stuffing for the turkey. The dining table was laden with dishes I had carefully prepared. There were traditional recipes from my parents' hometown that they loved. My favorite poached cod, and of course, a pot of creamy pork rib and sweet corn soup. I had made especially for Joyce, without a hint of spice. Joyce, dressed in a cute red Christmas jumper, looked like an adorable little elf. As she ran back and forth across the spacious living room, her laughter ringing like silver bells. The doorbell chimed. It was Richard Fox. No longer my stern, unapproachable boss, but an admirer I respected and was tentatively dating. He arrived bearing a bottle of fine wine and a Lego castle set for Joyce. We raised our glasses in a toast to the new year. The air was free from arguments, tension, or the need to tread carefully. Instead, it was filled with warm lamplight and easy laughter. The telly played festive Christmas carols and shows, while outside, fireworks lit up the sky. Joyce took a sip of the sweet soup, her eyes crinkling with satisfaction as she said in her endearing little voice, "Mummy, tonight's Christmas Eve dinner is so yummy." I stroked her head, gazing at her innocent smile, then at my loving parents, and finally at the gentle, refined man sitting across from me. I felt my eyes grow misty. I smiled. This was the Christmas I had always wanted. This was home.